y me llama el cocinero. Risita, ¿qué? Ve por la paellera. Venga, que las 2 de la tarde ya están aquí. Miren, bañador, en las chanclas. Todo despeinado porque no me dio tiempo nada ponerme las chanclas y el bañador. Voy a la playa, había subido la marea. Eso. Tú, había subido la marea y encontré una paella.
What many would label as the post-TI patch, 734E has now arrived. And while a lot of people have voiced their disappointment with the relatively minor changes given within, it's still important that we try to distill the patch notes themselves. To that end, I want to briefly acknowledge and talk about not only the changes as a whole, but what I would personally consider one of the potentially most pivotal changes coming from the newest patch. So let's dig into it. By the by, if you like content such as this, I release videos on a weekly basis. A like and a follow here on YouTube helps me out a lot, and you guys are what makes my videos possible. To begin with, the most obvious changes that's befallen onto the game is predominantly that of the hero changes that are directed at the former TI champion heroes. Characters such as Spiritbreaker, Bristleback and Chaos Knight got hit quite heavily in the shins with their nerfs, and are currently taking quite a bit of a nosedive in their win rate and effect. This is extremely common after a patch where certain heroes have shown themselves to be a bit overtuned compared to the rest of the cast. We also have heroes that are still almost as strong as they were before, such as Spectre, that clearly didn't get nerfed enough, only receiving -1 base armor as a nerf, and that was it. As I said, these changes are very obvious. But from these changes is where the interesting possibilities start rising. Because many top tier core heroes have been toned down significantly, we're slowly, but surely, starting to see other heroes creep upwards that weren't played as much before, such as Phantom Lancer, with even Sniper having seen a bit more pop play as of recently. With that notion out of the way, this brings me to the core of what I primarily wanted to talk about. I believe we might have a bit of a potential playstyle shift on our hands. Dota 2 in 734 as a whole has very often been about getting a lead, holding on to it, and then pushing S5 when you're strong enough to not throw that lead away anymore. Truly, this is shown no better than the International, where it wasn't at all that rare to see games head into the 50 to 60 minute territory consistently. With pushing high ground being so difficult as it is, pros instead opted for getting ahead, taking over the map, and farming themselves up to a comfortably sized lead before taking out Roshan and then attempting to end the game gradually.
Doom is also going to fall as BetBoom reassert dominance, wants to bring them down and turns for the Pierce the Veil, but save. Does he have enough damage?
Oh, how do you like it,
down and gets him caught and killed.
I believe that with these changes, there's now a significantly better opportunity for ending games much earlier, although not guaranteed. In particular, the one item that was buffed and solidifies the idea a bit more is none other than Vladimir's offering. Vladimir's and its associated item, Helm of the Overlord, were now buffed with a +1 armor tied to them. This might not sound like much in the grand scheme of things, but if we combine this buff with the previously mentioned nerfs that a lot of tempo cores and late game heroes just received, bingo. Furthermore, one of the best heroes for applying early game pressure and trying to win a game quickly is Lycan, who also just so happens to be the hero that arguably got buffed the most in a direct manner, receiving 2 more base agility and having his agility gain increased from 1.4 to 1.8. Again, this might not sound like a lot, but as luck would have it, Lycan was recently changed into a universal hero, which means that his damage, and his potential to apply to both heroes and structures, is now much better coming into the early and mid game. Likewise, while not buffed directly, other early game push heroes, such as Chen, has benefited massively from these changes. Now that the former strong cores aren't as strong, particularly in the early game anymore, it's significantly easier for these early game dominators to reach their peak. It is absolutely no coincidence that if we take the top 10 heroes from Dota buff over all skill brackets, we can see that 6 out of 10 of them, Lycan, Chen, Enigma, Broodmother, Leshrac, and Beastmaster, all thrive in this kind of playstyle, getting ahead early, pushing towers, and winning games quickly. And these were the ones that saw the biggest win rate increase in total. Not to mention that the already dominating Lone Druid didn't even get nerfed. It's too early to say whether or not push meta will see itself as becoming one of the more dominant strategies in pub Dota, but as it stands right now, I can fully recommend that players interested in wanting MMR and winning games more quickly try out this style of playing the game. It requires a bit more teamwork on average than just hanging back and farming for 40 minutes. Yes, but assuming that people get more and more used to it over time, it will only get easier and easier to pull off in pubs. As everyone knows, the shift from D to E really isn't that big in the change department, but ultimately, having pored over the patch notes several times, and having combed over data coming out from the patch itself, this really does seem to be the greatest differences so far. As it stands, I think this is the best time for unleashing and refining your inner push player potential. If you've ever wanted to play very early aggressive push heroes, such as Lycan, Chen, Visage, and similar characters, now would be the ideal time to put in the hard work, and be rewarded greatly in the MMR department for doing so.